I wasn't expecting much from the move, honestly. Just some sweat, bruised knuckles, and probably a few pulled muscles. What I wasn't expecting was for my longtime friend, Sam, to look at me differently by the end of the day, or for me to look at him differently, either. I've known Sam for almost 5 years. We met working the same part-time job in college, and somehow stayed in touch through different cities, different jobs, and different relationships. He was the kind of friend I saw a few times a year, the kind you can pick up with right where you left off. Solid, dependable, funny in that quiet way. And, yeah, hot. I just didn't let myself think about that too much. He was straight, always had been, or so I thought. So when I mentioned over text that I was finally moving into a place with actual sunlight and no mold in the bathroom, he replied immediately, "You need a hand this weekend? I'm free." And just like that, he was there the morning of the move. Cargo shorts, a backwards hat, and the same crooked smile I remembered from college. "You really packed everything in trash bags?" he asked, eyeing my living room like it was a crime scene. "Boxes are a scam," I said. "These have served me well." He shook his head, smirking, and slung 2 bulging black bags over his shoulder like it was nothing. "God, you haven't changed at all." We worked all morning, sweating through our shirts as we loaded up the truck I'd rented. Sam never complained, not once. Just kept cracking jokes and blasting music from his phone like it was a road trip instead of grunt labor. At one point, while we were wedging my dresser into the narrow hallway, he caught me checking him out, and I know he did because he raised an eyebrow and gave me that half smile, the one that always made me nervous for no good reason. "You good?" he asked casually, arm still around the dresser. "Yeah," I said too quickly, grabbing the side. "All good." The new apartment was only 10 minutes away, but the vibe shifted on the drive over. We were both quieter. Tired, sure, but it wasn't just that. Something hung in the air, like static, like anticipation. At the new place, we unpacked just enough to survive the night. Mattress on the floor, some basic kitchen stuff, 2 folding chairs. I offered to order pizza as a thank you, and Sam just nodded and flopped onto the bare mattress, legs spread out like he owned the place. "You know," he said, staring up at the ceiling fan, "this place isn't bad. It's got good bones." I handed him a slice. "So do I, and look where that's gotten me." He laughed, then looked over at me for a beat too long. After we ate, I found him in the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face. His hair was damp, shirt clinging to his chest, and for the first time in a while, I didn't look away. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or the fact that we were alone in this unfamiliar space, but something felt raw between us. Exposed. "You okay?" I asked. He dried his face with a hand towel, then leaned against the sink and looked at me like he was deciding something. "I think I've been avoiding you," he said. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You ever feel like there's something you're not supposed to want, but you want it anyway?" My stomach dropped. My mouth went dry. I knew this moment could break me if I read it wrong. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I think I know what you mean." He stepped toward me. Just one step, but close enough that I could feel his body heat. His eyes flicked down to my lips for just a second before meeting mine again. "I'm tired of pretending I don't," he said quietly. He said it so softly I almost thought I misheard him. "I'm tired of pretending I don't." We were standing barely a foot apart in a bathroom that smelled faintly like fresh paint and cheap hand soap. The light above the mirror buzzed faintly, casting that sterile glow that made everything feel a little too real. I didn't move. I didn't know how to. His words rang in my ears, my heart pounding so loud it was the only thing I could hear. "Don't what?" I finally managed to say, even though I knew damn well what he meant. Sam tilted his head slightly, and I saw the flicker of something behind his eyes. Fear, maybe, but also determination. "Don't think about you," he said. "Don't wonder what it would be like if—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The silence between us filled it in. This was Sam, my buddy, my friend from college who used to drunkenly flirt with girls at parties and crash on my couch with Cheeto dust on his shirt. The guy who once helped me change a tire in the rain and gave me crap for listening to sad indie music when I went through a breakup. And yet, here he was, standing in my new apartment, saying things I never thought I'd hear from him. I swallowed hard. Have you thought about this before? His eyes didn't leave mine. Yeah. I mean, not in a... It's not like I've been hiding some huge secret. I just didn't think it mattered, or that I could do anything about it. He paused. But being around you again today, I don't know. Something changed. The world felt unsteady for a second. Not in a bad way, more like that weightless feeling right before a roller coaster drops. I realized I was still gripping the bathroom door frame, like my body needed something solid to hold on to. I don't want to mess things up, he added, softer now. If this is weird for you, just say the word and I'll back off. I stared at him, really looked at him. His chest was still rising and falling faster than usual. His hands were tucked into his pockets like he was trying to hide the fact they were shaking. You're not messing anything up, I said quietly. That was all it took. He stepped forward, slow but certain, until we were chest to chest. And then his hand came up, gentle, unsure, and brushed the side of my face, thumb grazing just under my jaw. I exhaled, my breath catching, because suddenly everything I'd ever pushed to the back of my mind was right in front of me. I've never done this before, he whispered, but I want to. And then he kissed me. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't polished, it was hesitant, searching, like he was waiting for permission, and I gave it, leaning into him, sliding one hand around his waist, feeling the heat of his body and the tremble in his fingers. We kissed for a while, right there in the bathroom doorway, like time had slowed down just for us. The kind of kiss that makes you forget your name for a second. When we finally broke apart, we didn't move away. We just stood there, forehead to forehead, breathing in sync. Sam let out a short breath. That was... yeah. Yeah, I echoed, my lips still tingling. He pulled back a little and looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I really wasn't expecting this today. Same, I said, but I'm not complaining. He smiled. One of those small private ones, the kind you give someone when you're letting your guard down. I should probably let you sleep, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't want him to leave, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to happen next either. Everything was moving fast, and we both knew it. You can crash in here if you want, I offered, if that's not weird. Sam glanced toward the bedroom, and then back at me. It's not weird, unless you make it weird. That made me laugh. He always had that way of saying something dumb and perfectly timed to ease the tension. We ended up back in my room, both of us lying on the mattress, fully clothed, but so obviously aware of each other. I turned off the light, and in the dark, I felt the edge of his hand brush mine. I didn't pull away. He spoke first, voice soft in the dark. So, what does this mean? I don't know, I admitted, but I want to find out. There was a pause. Then I felt his fingers intertwine with mine. Cool, he said. Me too. We didn't say much after that. Just lay there, side by side, while the city hummed outside and the room settled around us like a breath finally exhaled. At some point, his head turned toward me, and he mumbled, "Just promise me you won't ghost me in the morning." I'm not going anywhere, I said, and I meant it. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was uncomfortable. Sam was warm beside me, his breathing slow and steady, but because I couldn't stop thinking about how quickly everything had shifted, about the way his lips had felt on mine, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this thing between us wasn't a one-night fluke. When the first light crept in through the blinds, I opened my eyes and turned slightly. Sam was still there, sprawled on his back like he owned the bed, one hand resting close to mine, not touching but just enough to let me know he hadn't changed his mind in the night. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if things would be awkward now, if he'd regret it, if I should play it cool, make a joke, pretend like it wasn't a big deal. But then he stirred, let out a soft groan, and turned his head toward me. "You're still here," he said, voice rough with sleep. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "You asked me not to ghost you, remember?" A slow smile spread across his face. "Right," I was serious about that. I shifted onto my side to face him. So was I. There was a brief silence between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt calm, familiar, like we were settling into something new, but not entirely foreign. Sam yawned and stretched, his shirt riding up slightly, exposing a sliver of skin. I tried not to stare. He caught me anyway. "See something you like?" he teased, smirking. I rolled my eyes but smiled. "You're a lot cockier in the morning, huh?" "I'm just riding the high of not being rejected," he said, voice still lazy and unfiltered. Kind of a rare experience for me. That made me laugh. "Yeah, well, I think I'm still trying to process that it happened at all." His expression shifted slightly, still amused, but now a little more thoughtful. Same. We lay there for a few more minutes before I reluctantly sat up and swung my legs off the mattress. As much as I'd love to stay in bed all day, I have about 15 boxes of chaos waiting for me in the living room. Sam sat up too, rubbing his eyes. "I guess the honeymoon phase is over, huh?" I glanced over my shoulder. "Was that our honeymoon? 1 kiss and 6 hours of shared mattress space?" He grinned. "I was trying to be romantic. Don't ruin it." As we got up and started the day, something shifted between us, not in a bad way, just different. There was a slight hesitance in our movements, like we were both trying to figure out the new rules. Do we act normal? Do we flirt? Do we talk about what happened or pretend it was no big deal? Sam helped me unpack the kitchen first. He stood barefoot in the corner, unwrapping mugs from newspaper while I tried to find space in the cabinets. Every now and then I caught him glancing at me, and when our eyes met, he didn't look away like he used to. "You know," he said after a while, "this place is already starting to feel like you." I looked around at the half-assembled chaos. "Really?" Because to me, it still feels like a warehouse for mildly depressed young professionals. "Exactly," he said, and we both laughed. But beneath the humor, I could feel something real, something tender. We were still us, but something was growing underneath the surface. By the time we took a break for coffee, we were sitting on the floor against the wall, legs stretched out, mugs in hand. Sam nudged me with his shoulder. "Okay, so real talk," he said. "What are we doing?" I took a sip and then stared into the coffee like it held the answers. "I don't know. I wasn't expecting anything to happen yesterday." "Same," he admitted. "But I'm glad it did." I looked at him. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he said, with none of the teasing from earlier. "And I'm not trying to rush anything. I don't want this to be a one-off thing." My stomach flipped in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. "You think this could be something?" I asked, quieter than I intended. He leaned his head back against the wall and looked at the ceiling. "I think it already is." I let that sit for a moment. Let myself feel the warmth of it, the truth of it. Then I bumped his shoulder with mine. "You're kind of a sap," I said. "You kissed me first," he shot back. "Pretty sure you kissed me first, actually." "We could argue about it," he said, leaning closer, his tone light. "Or we could just do it again and see who wins this round." I didn't hesitate this time. I kissed him, slow and sure, and this time it felt easier, natural, like the hesitation from the night before had melted into something steadier. When we pulled apart, his face was just inches from mine, and he smiled. "Guess we're both winning now." The rest of that Sunday blurred into something soft, quiet, easy in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. We didn't label anything, didn't try to force a conversation about what came next. But the way Sam moved around my apartment like he was already part of it, the way our arms brushed while unpacking, the way our legs stayed tangled a second too long whenever we sat down, that said everything. We took a break mid-afternoon, splitting a leftover sandwich from the night before and drinking from the same bottle of water without thinking twice. At one point, I caught him standing in my bedroom doorway, just looking around. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, just picturing it." "Picturing what?" He glanced back over his shoulder. "Your room. The apartment. I don't know. You. Here. It was such a simple sentence, but something about it made my chest tighten, in a good way. Later, we ended up sitting on the floor again, this time in front of the open window. The air outside was starting to cool, dusk softening the edges of the city. Sam rested his head against the wall, eyes half closed. I was always curious, he said after a while. About what? You? I smirked. That's vague as hell. He chuckled, then turned his head to look at me. No. I mean, I always liked being around you, but it was never the right time to think about why. I was dating someone. You were busy. Life just got in the way. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. But yesterday, when we were moving your stuff, I kept thinking, why does this feel different? And then last night, I don't know. It felt like the timing finally caught up with us. His words didn't feel rehearsed. If anything, they felt a little raw, like he wasn't sure what he was saying until he said it. But I appreciated that. It wasn't a grand confession, it was honest. I think I'd been feeling it too, I said. He looked over at me, a soft kind of surprise in his eyes. Really? Yeah, probably for a while. The space between us got quiet again, but now it was thick with understanding, like the words had been sitting there all along, waiting for someone to speak them out loud. Eventually, Sam stretched his legs and stood up. Okay, dramatic moment over, he said, grinning as he offered me his hand. We still have like 5 bags labeled, random crap to unpack. I laughed and let him pull me up. You labeled those, which means I know exactly how useless they are. We spent the rest of the evening going through old cords, tangled headphones, and broken kitchen utensils. Every now and then, Sam would hold something up and make some dumb comment, and I'd try to keep a straight face while tossing it into the trash. At one point, he found an old birthday card from my mom and read it in a dramatic falsetto voice, and I almost fell over laughing. It felt so normal, so us. And yet, it was new. Every time he touched my shoulder or leaned too close, every time he smirked in that half-flirty way, I could feel the difference. Something had shifted, and it wasn't going back. By the time it got late, the apartment looked slightly more put together, though there were still boxes shoved into corners and at least 2 lamps I couldn't remember owning. We stood in the hallway, sweaty and tired, both of us swaying a little from exhaustion. Sam rubbed the back of his neck. I should probably head out. Don't want to overstay my welcome on day 1. Who said you're overstaying? He raised an eyebrow. You inviting me to sleep over again? I shrugged. You did a lot of heavy lifting today. Seems only fair. There was a beat, a flicker of something in his expression. Yeah, he said. I'd like that. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. Back in my room, we both changed into more comfortable clothes. Him in a pair of my sweatpants and an old t-shirt I'd forgotten I even owned. We climbed into bed again, this time under a real blanket, and he curled up next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. His hand found mine under the sheets, fingers weaving together like we'd done it 1,000 times before. Hey, he murmured in the dark. Yeah? This doesn't feel weird, right? No, I said. It feels right. He exhaled, and I felt his thumb gently trace a line across the back of my hand. I don't know what this is yet, he whispered, but I want to keep finding out. I turned toward him, resting my forehead against his. Me too. We didn't kiss again that night. We didn't need to. Just the weight of him beside me, the warmth of his body pressed close, the way his breathing slowed as he drifted off. Those things were enough, for now. The next morning was the kind of quiet that makes you want to stay in bed just a little longer. No blaring alarms, no buzzing phones, just the soft rustle of sheets and the morning light filtering in through half-closed blinds. I wasn't sure if Sam was awake yet. He was lying on his side, facing me, one hand tucked under the pillow and the other resting lightly against my chest like it had found its way there sometime in the night. His breathing was slow and even, and part of me didn't want to move. Didn't want to break whatever this was, this moment that felt like it belonged outside of time. I lay there watching him for a few more minutes, my own breath syncing with his without thinking. We'd known each other for years, but this version of him, the one curled up beside me, skin warm under the blanket, expression soft and unguarded, felt entirely new, and maybe a little bit mine. Eventually his eyelids fluttered, and his eyes blinked open. "Morning," he said, voice low and raspy. "Hey," I whispered back. He looked around for a second, like he was remembering where he was. Then he smiled, small and a little crooked, and settled deeper into the pillow. "I didn't dream that, right?" he asked. I shook my head. "Nope, this is real." "Good," he said, "because that would have been a pretty cruel dream." We stayed in bed for another hour, talking about nothing. He asked me how many plants I planned on killing in this new apartment, and I told him I was going to change my ways and become a full-on plant dad. He didn't believe me. He also found a sock behind my headboard and accused me of being secretly feral. Eventually, our stomachs got the better of us, and we made our way to the kitchen. Sam made eggs while I tried to find where I'd packed the frying pan. At one point, he bumped into me at the counter and didn't bother to move away. His hand rested on my lower back as he reached for the salt, and he didn't even glance at me when he did it, like it was just natural now. It felt dangerous. How much I liked that. "So," he said casually while pouring eggs into the pan, "are you telling anyone about this?" I paused mid-sip of my coffee. "This? You know. Us. Whatever this is." I lowered the mug and leaned against the counter. "Do you want to tell people?" Sam shrugged, his focus on the eggs. "I don't know. I'm not trying to make it a thing right away, but I also don't want to sneak around like I'm ashamed or something." I nodded slowly. "I get that. I've never really done this before," he added, glancing at me. "Like been into a guy. It's not some dramatic coming out thing. It's just, this is new for me. You're new for me." There was no edge to his voice, no fear, just honesty. I walked over and bumped his hip with mine. "Well, you're new for me too, at least in this context. But yeah, I think we can take our time. No pressure." "Cool," he said. "So we're both figuring it out." "Exactly." He nodded, like that settled something. And it kind of did. After breakfast, we finished unpacking the last few boxes. Sam found a photo of us from junior year, sitting on a porch somewhere, holding beers and looking sunburnt, and he laughed way too hard at my haircut. I told him he looked like he hadn't slept in a month. We stuck the photo on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a banana. It made no sense, but it felt right. Later that afternoon, he stretched out on the couch while I sat cross-legged on the floor organizing books. At some point, I leaned back between his legs, resting my head on his knee. "You planning to head out soon?" I asked. "Eventually," he said. "You kicking me out already?" "Not at all. I was just thinking, if you wanted to stay another night, I wouldn't mind." He ran his fingers lazily through my hair. "I was hoping you'd say that." I smiled and closed my eyes, letting myself melt into the quiet hum of the room, the feel of his fingers, the calm that came with having him near. This wasn't what I expected when I asked him to help me move. I thought I'd get sore arms and maybe some decent company for a few hours. I didn't expect connection, or clarity, or this slow, surprising shift from something platonic into something more. I didn't expect to fall asleep that night with his arm around me again, his breath soft against the back of my neck, and feel like, for the first time in a while, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next few days unfolded in a way that felt strangely natural, like we hadn't crossed any invisible line at all, like Sam staying over and brushing his teeth in my bathroom, stealing my hoodies, and falling asleep with an arm draped over me was just part of our normal now. The shift had happened, but it hadn't broken anything. If anything, it felt like we'd just stumbled into a version of ourselves that had been waiting in the wings this whole time. On Tuesday morning, he left before I got up. I woke to a note on the kitchen counter, written on the back of a takeout menu. "Had to run. Early client meeting. Stealing your hoodie. Text me if you want to hang later, or if you get lonely. Or both. S." I read it twice before smiling like a total idiot. It was stupid how happy that note made me. That evening, I texted him just as I was finishing organizing the last of my books. "Still want to hang? I've got beer and bad streaming options." He replied within 5 minutes. "Be there in 20. Wearing your hoodie. Deal with it." When he showed up, he didn't even knock, just let himself in like it was already his second home. And the truth was, I kinda liked that he didn't ask permission. We ended up on the couch, legs tangled, a half-watched movie playing in the background. His head rested against my shoulder, and at one point, I turned to look at him. He was already looking at me. "You always do that?" I asked. "What?" "Stare at people when they're not looking." He smirked, unbothered. "Only you." There was no dramatic moment after that. No big kiss or heavy confession, just a warm kind of silence, like we were both figuring out how this version of us worked. And quietly loving it. The first real test came that weekend. I was invited to a small birthday thing for a mutual friend. Someone Sam knew too, though they weren't especially close. It was one of those rooftop gatherings with beers and plastic cups and conversations shouted over background music. A casual, friend of a friend kind of hangout. I didn't plan on mentioning anything about Sam. We hadn't exactly defined anything, and it didn't feel like anyone else's business yet. But then he showed up. I didn't even know he was coming. I was halfway through a conversation with one of my coworkers when I saw him step onto the rooftop, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the crowd until they found me. He made his way over with that familiar half smile, casual like we hadn't been wrapped around each other the night before. "Hey," he said, his voice soft but sure. "Didn't know you were coming?" He shrugged. "Got the invite this morning. Figured I'd surprise you." We stood there for a second, just the two of us, surrounded by noise and laughter and the blur of people who didn't know what was happening between us. And then he did something I wasn't expecting. He reached down and took my hand. Not in a showy way, not for attention. Just slid his fingers into mine like it was the most normal thing in the world. I looked at him, surprised. "You okay?" he asked, sensing my hesitation. "Yeah," I said. "I just wasn't sure if you wanted to be that open yet." He looked around, then back at me. "I don't care what anyone else thinks. Do you?" I thought about it for a second. Then I squeezed his hand. "No, not really." We spent the rest of the night sticking close. A few people noticed. One or two gave me that raised eyebrow look, and another friend of mine came up later and said, "So, you and Sam?" I just smiled. "Yeah, me and Sam." When we left the party, we walked side by side down a quiet street. He didn't let go of my hand. "So," he said as we turned a corner, "was that weird? Me showing up like that?" "Not weird, just unexpected." He nodded. I was nervous, not gonna lie. I glanced over. "You didn't look nervous." "That's because I was too busy trying to figure out how to casually grab your hand without overthinking it." I laughed. "You nailed it. Very smooth." He bumped his shoulder into mine. "Damn right I did." When we got back to my apartment, we kicked off our shoes, dropped our jackets, and collapsed on the bed without saying much. I lay on my side facing him. "You sure about this?" I asked. "About what?" "This. Us." He reached over and ran his hand down my arm, slow and steady. "I don't think I've ever been more sure of anything," he said. And I believed him. Whatever this was, however fast or slow it moved, it was real. And it was just getting started. I didn't have a blueprint for how to fall into something real with someone who had been in my life for years, but never quite like this. Every day with Sam felt familiar, but now it came with this constant undercurrent, a kind of warmth that lingered after he left, a new awareness of his laugh, the way he'd bump my hip with his in the kitchen just to make me smile. It was the same Sam I'd always known, except now I could kiss him, and he'd kiss me back like he'd been waiting for it too. We didn't talk about the future much, but we didn't avoid it either. Sometimes he stayed over. Other times he went home and texted me until we both fell asleep with our phones still in our hands. He started leaving things at my place. First a toothbrush, then a hoodie, then a pair of sneakers he never meant to forget. One night I opened the fridge and found a six-pack of the beer he liked. I hadn't bought it. "You planning on moving in?" I asked over dinner one night, raising an eyebrow. He didn't even flinch. just chewed a bite of pasta and said, "You'd like that too much." "Maybe I would," I shot back. But he grinned, and I saw the way his expression softened, like he'd already imagined it once or twice. Then came the night we fought. It was over something small. Stupid even. We were watching some show, and I paused it to check a work email that had just come in. He got quiet. I didn't think anything of it until later, when I asked him what was wrong. "You're always on your phone when we're hanging out," he said, voice calm but tight. "Sometimes it feels like you're not really here," I blinked. "I was answering one email." "I know," he said, standing up. "It's not just today." That surprised me. Sam didn't usually push things. But now he was pacing. Frustrated. "Look, I know you're busy, and I'm not asking for every second of your attention, but if we're doing this, whatever this is, then I want to feel like I matter when I'm here." I stood, a little defensively. "You do matter. But I can't drop everything every time we hang out." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm asking you to be present." That hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to argue, then shut it again. Because he was right. Not just about the phone. About me. I was still halfway in some days, still playing it safe. Still acting like this thing between us might vanish if I looked at it too closely. Sam sat back down, rubbing his forehead. "I don't want to fight. I just don't want to feel like I'm more into this than you are." I walked over and sat beside him. "You're not," I said quietly. He looked up at me. "I'm not great at this," I added, "but I'm trying, and I don't want to screw it up." His shoulders relaxed a little. "I know you're trying," he said. "I just needed to hear it." We sat there for a while, not talking, just being. And somehow, that moment, quiet and raw as it was, felt more intimate than the first time he kissed me. After a while, he rested his head on my shoulder. "You want to keep watching?" I nodded. "Yeah, but I'll put my phone away." He smiled, a little tired but genuine. "Deal." The next morning, I woke up before him. The sun was barely up, the room still painted in early gray light. He was sprawled out on his stomach, hair a mess, one arm across my waist. I didn't move. I just watched him breathe, because for all the uncertainty, all the learning curves, and all the slow navigation through something new and kind of scary, I knew I wanted to keep doing this. With him, we weren't perfect, but we were figuring it out. One toothbrush, one hoodie, one quiet apology at a time, and I wasn't going anywhere. It was 2 weeks later, on a Thursday of all things, when Sam said it. We were at the grocery store, standing in the cereal aisle, arguing over whether adulting meant buying plain granola or shamelessly getting the sugary stuff shaped like marshmallows. He held up a box of Lucky Charms and smirked. "Don't lie," he said. "You want this." "I mean, yeah," I replied, "but I also don't want to feel like a child while eating breakfast." He looked at me dead serious and said, "Let's get both. That way we can be adults and children. Like, emotionally accurate." I laughed, shaking my head, reaching for the granola. When I turned to hand it to him, he was still staring at me. "What?" I asked, caught off guard by the softness in his expression. He blinked, like he didn't mean to say it yet, but couldn't stop himself now. "I think I'm falling for you." The cereal aisle went silent, or maybe the world just paused. Either way, I forgot where we were. I forgot what we were doing. I just stared at him, my heart climbing up into my throat. He immediately looked like he regretted the timing. "Shit, sorry. I didn't mean to. Well, I did. Maybe not while you're holding fiber cereal. That wasn't my plan." I didn't say anything right away. I just set the box in the cart, stepped a little closer, and took his hand. "Yeah," I said, because I think I already fell. His face relaxed, and then he smiled, one of those wide, boyish ones I hadn't seen in a while. His hand squeezed mine. "I was hoping you'd say that." Back at the apartment, things didn't change in any dramatic way. There were no declarations with candles, no dramatic music swelling as we kissed under rain. Just small things. Dishes done together, Spotify fights in the morning, Falling asleep with our legs tangled and waking up to him pressing sleepy kisses to my neck without thinking, he is becoming part of the rhythm of my life. On Sunday, I caught him reorganizing one of my kitchen drawers. "I'm not living with a drawer full of mismatched lids," he said seriously, like this was a moral stand. "You're not even living here," I teased. He looked at me over his shoulder, completely unbothered. "I kind of am, though." And that was the moment I realized I wanted him to. Not just because he made my life feel softer. Not because he was funny or sweet or kissed me like I mattered. But because when I thought about the future, my actual, real-life, boring adult future, I saw him in it. I didn't know what the next month would look like, or the next year, but I knew who I wanted next to me when I figured it out. So one night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, I spit into the sink, wiped my mouth, and said, "You want to move in for real?" He blinked at me in the mirror. "Wait, are you serious? I mean, you're already here most nights. Might as well stop pretending you're just crashing on occasion." He grinned so wide, I saw toothpaste foam on his bottom lip. "You sure you can handle me full time?" I reached for his hand and gave it a squeeze. "Try me." We moved the rest of his stuff in the following weekend. And yeah, it was chaotic. He brought way too many shoes. I had too many mugs. We fought about closet space and whether or not it was acceptable to hang a poster of an old punk band in the living room. It wasn't. It went in the hallway. But at the end of it, we stood in the middle of the now shared apartment, sweaty and tired and surrounded by open boxes. And Sam leaned in, pressed his forehead to mine, and said, "This is gonna be good, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said, pulling him into a slow, quiet kiss. "It already is."